It's time to start your morning by taking 5. Here's your host, Matt McMaster.
You're listening to Take 5, a quick 5-minute take on the biggest things happening in Nebraska sports. I'm your host, Matt McMaster, and today we're talking about two things Matt Rhule talked about yesterday in his 35-minute press conference that I want to hit on. Number one, him and John Butler did not mesh. He made it very clear. The headline quote was, "Don't tell me that the players aren't good enough." John Butler did that. I'm sure he did that behind closed doors. Most notably, he did that before the Iowa game, after the Penn State game, essentially saying, hey, we need to go out and get better players in the portal defensive line to improve the rush defense. And look, it's just one of those things where John Butler is an NFL guy. John Butler spent a lot of time in the pros. And in the pros, here's how it works. You're not good enough. You're cut. We're going to go to the practice squad. We'll pick somebody up. If that practice squad guy is good enough, we'll cut him. We'll trade for somebody else, or we'll pick somebody else up in free agency, and we'll solve that problem that way. That's not how it works in college, right? Despite the fact that we are getting closer to that, that's still not how it works. And Matt Rhule is a coach rooted in development. He's rooted in player development. That's his ethos. That's his main core. Hey, I want to take guys and I want to make them the best possible football players that they can be. And when you have not only just an assistant coach, but a coordinator saying, yeah, our guys aren't good enough, that kind of goes against what Matt Rhule's principles are and what Matt Rhule believes. And so it was just clear, Butler is saying, hey, we got to go out and get more guys on the D-line of the media. You can just imagine what he's saying behind closed doors, and clearly that just didn't connect with Rhule, and that just doesn't match what the program is. And, one thing that I question from that quote is I don't blame Rhule for making that assessment and saying, hey, we need to have coaches that kind of match my vision. That's college football. You need to get that done. What I question, though, is it's not as if Matt Rhule called John Butler, didn't know who he was, told him to be the defensive coordinator. Butler was in the building for months before he was eventually hired to be the defensive coordinator. He spent a full season as the defensive backs coach for Nebraska football. So for Rhule to not, in that time, in that full season, recognize, hey, this is how Butler operates, and this is how he kind of looks at players, and it doesn't really match how I look at players, for him to have that time and not diagnose that and then still hire him to be the defensive coordinator, and then through the season, you figure that out, and you figure out that you don't really mesh. That's a mistake from Rhule. That's on Rhule. Rhule needed to realize, hey, me and Butler don't really see eye to eye in terms of how he looks at players and how I look at players and how I view development and how he views fixing problems. And he should not have been the pick to be the defensive coordinator if that was the case. And so I think that, Rhule isn't stating that he made a mistake, but I think even he would admit the fact that he didn't recognize that even through a whole season of having Butler in the building and still gave him that important job was a mistake. But it's been remedied. Butler's gone. I think John Butler's a really, really good defensive backs coach. You just have to look at the secondary and how they played this season. And I think, at times he proved to be a pretty good defensive coordinator. It's just he could not figure out how to stop the run. And at the end of the day, that all falls squarely on him, because how they lost in Week 12 is exactly how they lost in Week 4, and that's completely unacceptable. Albeit, though, he's gone. Matt Rhule knows this is a big hire. He kind of tipped a little bit, talked about, hey, if you're, he kind of tipped his hand a little bit, kind of mentioning that they're probably going to go after a premier, coordinator that's currently coaching a college. And so that kind of might narrow down the field just a little bit, but not a ton. But this is going to be a really, really big hire and a very, consequential hire potentially for Matt Rhule in Nebraska. And he's got to hit this one out of the park. All right, number 2, his comments on Dylan Raiola. The relationship between Matt Rhule and Nebraska football, and Dylan Raiola has been very interesting. They have catered to Dylan. They have tried to build this team around Dylan. They've done nothing but compliment Dylan. They've done nothing but talk about how great he is. Matt Rhule, every time he talks about Dylan Raiola, says he's doing great. He's awesome. He's becoming a great leader. He's taking these steps. He's doing exactly what we need. At one point, he said that he had told his team, hey, it ain't on the quarterback. It ain't on number 15. He's playing his butt off. And yet yesterday was the first time he kind of put pressure on Dylan Raiola. he said, look, Dylan needs to get better. It's year 3, and we are anxiously waiting for him to become the player that we know that he can be, and he needs to make those improvements. And that was kind of the first time that Matt Rule put a little pressure on his quarterback. And it's just very interesting to me because, it's a very precarious time for Nebraska and the Raiolas and their current relationship, because there is a legitimate possibility that Dylan Raiola could be leaving and going to a different school. And so I think the timing of it, of when Matt Rule has decided to kind of put it out in the air of like, hey, we need him to get better and we need him to make improvements. It's just very curious timing, in my opinion. I've always viewed Matt Rule and Nebraska, their relationship with Dylan Raiola, as someone who's saying, giving him everything and saying, we love you, we need you, we're so happy you're here. And now I think Nebraska, in a way, is kind of waiting for that to be reciprocated, right? Hey, we love you. We've tried to our best by you. We've tried to grant your wishes and try and make you the very best player. And I think that, in a way, if Matt Rule and Nebraska want that reciprocated back to them and are a little annoyed if they're not getting it reciprocated back to them, and I'm not saying they are, I'm just speculating, but if they were to be, I would not blame them. And so I think it's just very interesting timing, is this is when Matt Rule has decided to put a little pressure on Dylan and say, hey, look, you need to get better and you need to take steps, and this, kind of falls on you, and we're counting on you, and we're anxious about you taking the next steps. Like, how does Dylan respond to that? Does Dylan say, screw that? I've done everything I can. I'm you haven't given me the weapons that I needed. You haven't given me the tools that I need. You haven't given me the coaching I need. I need more from you. You haven't done as right by me. You know what? I'm going to pack it up and I'm going to go to this school, or I'm going to go to that school, and I'm going to go to a school that has better weapons and better coaching and a better offensive line and more suits my needs. And does he look at those comments about Matt Rule saying, hey, you need to get better, as a, well, what do you mean I need to help me? You need to help me. Does he look at it that way? Or does he buck up a little bit and say, yeah, I know, and I will. And I came here to the University of Nebraska to win football games. I came here to the University of Nebraska to play in big football games. I came here to the University of Nebraska to be the foundational piece that puts this program back on the map. And I haven't accomplished that yet. And my ability to accomplish that is solely at this point reliant on me getting better and taking this offseason, improving my mobility, improving my deep ball accuracy, improving, my decision making, my reads and my quickness and my football IQ. I'm going to go in, I'm going to do it, because this is what I've committed to do, right? So Matt Rule, in this time, with Dylan Raiola potentially on the move, potentially. I just want to throw that out there, not for sure, but potentially on the move. It's an interesting time for him, kind of for the first time, to put a little pressure on Dylan, to be like, hey, you got to get better, man. We're counting on you. And how does Dylan respond? Does Dylan say, nope, you failed me, I'm going somewhere else, they're going to help me out? Or does Dylan say, you know what, coach, you're right, let's do it, let's win. I made a promise. He didn't make a promise, but he established that he wanted to be the guy at Nebraska. Time for you to go and do it. So we will see what happens. It is going to be a crazy road all the way through what might be the Vegas Bowl, and then through the playoff season into the transfer portal season. It should be a wild, fun ride. All right, that's been Take 5. I've been Matt McMaster.